don't know if you have heard of it. It's an acceleration.
Hi, everybody. Oh, wow. That surprised me. Hi, everybody, and welcome. My name is Eva. I am the CEO of Betahaus X, which is a division of Betahaus that builds various programs to support startups and also larger companies to get in touch with them. I am extremely excited to be here. It's my first event, as I believe for many of you also participating. First of all, thank you for everybody that's here in person, but also especially thanks to everybody that's here online, especially between the time zones. I really value that you put in this devotion and that you want to participate and that we're able to have both worlds together. This is the final panel of today, so thank you all also for still having the energy and concentration to tune in with us. We're going to talk about different programs that help startups and scale-ups internationalize. Both, of course, we're in Asia Berlin Summit, so we're focusing on European and Asian continent and how these programs interact with one another. We at Betahaus X have been building these type of programs and try to position ourselves as ecosystem enablers. So we always try to connect also with other program builders, not just individual stakeholders to support startups, which makes me very happy to maybe use this opportunity to introduce, let's say, the first two panelists that are in person, and then I'll follow up to my startup love online. But to start with, I'm really happy to have Mario Steinbuch. He's the co-founder of 36 Chambers, and they're a venture studio for startups in between Japan and Germany. Maybe, Mario, you can say.
Yes, thanks, Eva. Very happy to be here. It's very special to be in person again. So yes, very briefly, we help all startups from all kinds of different regions to land in Germany and Japan. Right, so like connect, interact, and scale in these ecosystems where we have our networks, because bridging the cultural gap is just crucial for not burning a lot of cash as either investor or startup, right? So yeah, that's where we help.
Nice one. Don't reveal too much yet. We're coming there. The second one I'm also very happy to have. It's Emon. He is currently building actually a platform to connect the two continents for the tech companies who will scale, but he has vast experience also from running Tech Code here in Berlin. Maybe Emon, you can say a few things about your ventures.
Thank you very much. Very glad to be here. I'm now here at this year's Asia Berlin Summit as the managing director of KR Europe, which is actually the part of the biggest tech media from Asia, the 36 KR Group Global. So what we are doing is nothing else than coveraging the startup news, business news, and tech news in the Asian countries. So we're operating in China, in Japan, Southeast Asia. So with something like 800 million of monthly page views, just to give you a feeling. So I think this topic is very, very relevant for us to connect Berlin with the whole different Asia ecosystem. And yeah, I'm super, super excited to be part of this panel today.
Amazing. Thank you for coming. Then we have my two startuppers. We love having startups part of it. I'm going to start by introducing Edwina. Edwina is a co-founder of Vivify, Textiles, and Phoenxt, a waste reduction startup. Edwina, could you maybe share some words?
Yes, hi everybody. Nice to meet you as we're over here online. Vivify Textiles and Phoenxt, we are actually aimed to bridge the gap between the textile waste all the way to raw material supply. So been working in the sustainable fashion industry, and I've been very pleased to be, I guess, guided by betahaus and also TechCo at Mencia. It's been a long time that I've been working directly in these ecosystems, and I would love to share a lot of positive experience that I had between as a startup coming to Europe, knew nothing about Europe, but and now right now still staying in Europe, haven't got scared away yet. So I'm looking forward to share more experience with you guys.
Amazing. Thank you for joining. And last but not least, Pranav, you deserve an applause on your own. You're joining us all the way from the Indian time zone. Thank you again for making that. Pranav is the co-founder of GeneX, which is a startup. Sorry?
GeneBox. Sorry.
GeneBox. Sorry. Yeah. Which is a startup that focuses on analyzing your DNA in order to basically be able to predict, for example, in the cases we work together, it was talent injury and talent injury prevention and injury recognition. But Pranav, you see, I was already stumbling on the sentences to explain you guys, so I desperately need your help.
Yeah, sure. Pleasure speaking to you again, Eva. Hope you're well. So at GeneBox, we are a unique company. What we do is we're a B2B company. So what we do is we build content around what your genome says about you, and then we license that content out to other B2C companies, for example. So we would typically work with other genetic testing companies in the gut microbiome space, and health tech companies, etc., who license our content and make the reports their own. That's what GeneBox has evolved, and betahaus gave us an opportunity to work on Wordle Labs. That kind of opened a lot of doors for us in Europe. A lot of people are skeptical to work across geographies, but then when we got selected for Wordle Labs, I also took the time to kind of have some meetings. And those are still our clients till this date, and it's been going brilliantly well for us.
Amazing, very happy to hear. Maybe to start sort of with the first question to also bring everybody on the same page on the topic of internationalization. Maybe Emon, I would start with you. So I'm going to ask in short, what has been your experience supporting startups internationalized in Europe?
We have basically covered a lot of, especially because I'm Chinese citizen. I grew up in China, went to Germany like 15 years ago. And I think this is just a recent, in the last 5 years, I've been seeing a wave of especially Asian startups, many from China to come into Europe, try to expand their businesses. And we got, as a media company, we get the inquiries all the time to try to, China is a big market, but it's like not big enough for all the startups. So if you want to have different stories, you want to address this premium market like Europe, you are really needing some homework to be done. So yeah, we have a lot of projects covered in the past years. Like in Berlin, we have successfully seen many interesting companies like Mobike. If you are into the bike sharing, I come here today with a bike. So there's mobility startups, or technology startups, and not to mention TikTok, like landing in Berlin. So definitely we have seen a wave of Asian startups landing to Germany, to Europe, and especially using Germany as a gateway to address a broader European market. So this is the kind of things that we have been seeing, and we believe there will be more and more startups going this way from China, India, and other parts of the world to Europe, to Germany.
Amazing, thank you, Iman. Maybe to get a startup perspective, Edwina, you've came to Europe with your startup, and then you also founded your second venture here. What has been your experience doing the internationalization for Vivify and then opening Phoenxt here?
Well, first of all, the experience couldn't be much more positive than I expected, to be honest. Coming out from Australia, it's little tiny country down in South under, and coming to Europe has always been focusing on the right market for specifically sustainable fashions. And why I say the experience has been more than positive is because specifically the ecosystem in Germany has been like mind-blowing for me, because a lot of the time when English-speaking countries coming to a German country, they think that, oh my God, you have to speak a lot of German, you have to understand a lot of context. But in the matter of fact, Berlin specifically has been a very international ecosystem for startup to actually find their way to actually step into the European country. And not only the ecosystem, I'm talking about accelerator, incubator, co-working space, also the connecting point. Whereas, for example, we are an Australian company, so we were connected by Australia, which is the Australian government, to expand abroad. The community has been very supportive for you to kind of land in Europe and also find your ground and connect to partners that are actually relevant for your business. So my overall experience has been only positive and hasn't been any negative there.
Okay, amazing. I'm soon going to tap into those partners that you've been mentioning. I want to find out more on who has been the one. But maybe just to close this question, Mari, I would kind of want to come back to you as a program organizer. You guys are a little bit new kids on the block. You have a very specific business model, I would like to say. So what has been your experience taking companies, for example, to Japan? at the moment? How is it attractive for European companies to look into Japan as a potential market? So what's your take?
Yes, so so we do both, right? So we do entry into Germany and into Japan, and for example, we have a couple of things going on right now, and it's very different depending on where are the startups coming from, right? Because if the cultural, how big is the cultural difference and the cultural gap that we help bridging, right? For example, we have now a program in North Macedonia, right, where we bring startups from there that want to expand, that have already some reasonable success in the local market, which is very small, and then want to expand to Germany or Japan, right? And they're we're talking about multi-partner programs. So they have our Japanese track and they have our German track, one company at the same time. And is it a curse or a blessing? Kind of. I think it can be both, right? And this is one thing that is very crucial for the success that we had to find out is the dedication of the startups, obviously, right? So just entering these types of programs with, oh yeah, that's great, and we're going to do it, and it's going to be beneficial, will only be beneficial if the time of key people is dedicated, right? And to your point, Edwina, yes, it's true. I think for Berlin, it's a very relatively easy access, but it depends really on your business model, right? If you're in B2B, very soon you'll get to kind of a ceiling. Okay, you have an easy entry, but then you need to make these B2B sales connections, maybe in an industry that's maybe not in Berlin, right? And then very fast startups or either more advanced companies find out they will have to build up a German team or need help with recruiting a German team, and that's where programs like ours, I think, are very, very helpful.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for tying it to the topic of the day. It's very good. You're helping me do my job. Last but not least, Pranav, I want to hear your take. You've been part of, well, at least between our engagement, you've been part of a program that was not only focusing on internationalization, but it had a very POC-focused, goal with one of our partners. What has been your experience coming to such a specific program and yet obviously needing to deal with internationalization as sort of more or less secondary goal?
So two parts, right? So the first part, the internalization was made very easy because of the coaches that were provided, right? That made our life a lot more easier because especially for us, we're a B2B company, and as Mario rightly pointed out, you have to know the nuances to kind of open those doors and get them in. And then post that, you are kind of wondering, how do we do that when you're sitting across borders, right? But that was made very easy for us. I think Mario and Edwina also made a fair point that I enjoy the Berlin ecosystem as well. And more on top of that, what I feel is you have to be very specific to get value out of these programs, right? Because as Mario rightly pointed out, he's at a late stage where he'll help you hire a German team, get things into motion. And I think as a founder, it is critical that you come in with clarity on what your goal is. And to wrap it up, I would just say that, key management has to be there to kind of take it forward, right? If you're exploring a new geography, you've got to have your best people on top of it, right? If it's not, it's very rare I've seen people succeed when, the top guy isn't there in a new venture or, ability to solve problems in a new country. Is missing.
Thank you for sharing. So let's maybe use that opportunity to dive right into it. So we had so far mentions of you right now, Pranav mentions individuals as coaches or consultants. We have talks about organizations that are helping you solve certain issues, also individuality about landing somewhere and finding your ground. So maybe to start, Pranav, now with you, just to go backwards, what would you think are the key individuals or partners, so to say, that would help a startup entering, let's say, Europe from your perspective, based upon your experience?
So I think the key parameters is the startup has to be very clear on what the market looks like. Like, is it a B2B play or a B2C play? Because what I've realized with B2C companies predominantly is they seldom miss the product market fit. The communication needs to change from one country to another country. The user behavior changes quite a lot. And we've been seeing that as a genomics company as well, right? What copy works maybe in Germany, will never work in England, will never work in the US. People are looking for different things, but it's the same solution, right? It's just how you package it better. So I think connecting with an ecosystem who understands that and who sensitized that made a lot of difference, right? So for example, if I would have come to a program without the help of the coaches that you guys provided, it was a very small chance that we would have been even motivated to kind of do a lot of things that we did. But the coaches help us, it's very important to have local connects and people who understand the local geography, in my opinion. I think that's the key for me.
Thank you for sharing. Just one more follow-up question to Pranav. How much have you physically spent time? Like, how much time have you physically spent in Europe actually doing this? I'm really curious in your case.
Not a lot, because COVID hit and then I had to go back. But I was prepared to stay for 3 months on the Word Labs program. And as you were aware, between meetings as well, I was traveling to different countries for potential meetings that I'd set up when I was already there. So I did go to Copenhagen. I did a couple of meetings in Germany as well, in different cities. And then we finally went to Bremen for the meeting. So we had a 2-day period, a layover. I traveled, and post that I did that as well. So not a lot, maybe a couple of weeks is what I ended up spending. But again, my ask was very specific. I knew companies are looking for a solution like ours because not a lot of people have built that kind of content. Mm-hmm. And we had validation from industry leaders, right? So we knew other labs and other players who knew that the content we built is not easily available. So our job was a little easier, I would say, coming into Europe, because we knew there was a need. Mm-hmm. It was just that it needed a lot of trust. And I think doing the Word program gave us that trust and benchmark as well. So that kind of helped a lot, I would say.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Edwina, maybe moving to you, and from your take, you already mentioned some of the partners and stakeholders that you were introduced to when you first landed in Berlin. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit more to help share if there are any startups in the audience on whom should they turn to? Maybe no need to name drop if you don't feel for, but just as like the type of organization or the type of services that you were seeking for.
Right. So from the beginning, we start out entering into the European markets because we were supported by our local government to be expanding abroad. And with that, it gave us access of the local ecosystem, like, accelerator and incubator, where, they will actually give you additional mentoring opportunity that, fill the gap that you were not able to actually fulfill. And I think the key point here is that it's quite essential if you wanted to enter into a new culture that you haven't been and you don't know. It's very important that you have a key partner. So I partner directly with what we call Austrade. It's Australian Trade and Invest, equivalent to. And they actually give us direct access to the ecosystem that connects us to the accelerators or connect with brands such as like Techco, for example, and also directly connected us to our potential customers. So like brands that actually do work with my company today, if it wasn't the connection that we have built back in the day, leveraging of a right partner, it wouldn't have gone so far. I mean, right now, even for my company, we were able to build our own team, our European team, and at the same time, working with some of these renowned international brands like Keyring, PVH, and Target directly. And it's mostly thanks to the connection that we have built from day one back in the day, directly connected to, let's say, the ecosystem in Berlin. Like for example, even if I knew Eva, for example, she would have known somebody who does something that I actually needed. So this kind of connection really does amplify a lot in Berlin. Whereas if I were to find the similar ecosystem to do it in Switzerland, for example, that's not the same, right? So in essence, is that you can connect yourself to the local government, like the government, I think what you call it is export trading department that can help you to export your products and services abroad. And then what they can do is that, for example, for you to come into Germany, there's another organization that specifically help you to register company on board. For example, like German Trade and Invest or Berlin Partners, that they really will help you to actually onboard your business, come into Germany, and they will actually help you to do registrations. They will also help you to, fill in specific government forms, or if you need to employ people, so on and so forth. These are some of the organizations that they can help you with to get your, to get a head start if you don't know anything about the system, because they will give you employment, legal, all these different organization structures that you can understand the legal entity for you to actually form your business as a subsidiary for your own company.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing. One quick question to both of you. Do you have German employees, knowing that both of you have businesses also operating within Germany? Do you have German employees or German consultants that are working on your teams?
Edwina.
Sorry, I should have called.
Edwina, please go ahead. Yeah.
No, you go ahead first, please.
So for us, Eva, we've got some consultants, essentially, but no employees.
Okay.
We're still headquartered in Mumbai. Our plan, if COVID didn't strike, I would have been probably exploring one of the European countries as an HQ. But that's been pushed back. But yeah, we do have a couple of German consultants, and not just in Germany, but I think across Europe. We have around 6 to 8 consultants who kind of do some amount of work for us.
Cool. And Edwina, you?
We have contractors.
Okay.
Contractors in Europe. So some of them are in Germany, but not limited to Germany. Some of them are in other part of the European culture.
Thank you for sharing, guys. I'm going to move to the organizers, or I'm not sure what title should I give us in a way, or like program holders. So what about from your guys' perspective? So for example, Emon, you have seen, may I say, hundreds of startups. If we just limit to China, seeing within the last 5-10 years opening markets in Germany and in Europe. What have you seen in their seeing them grow? Which have been the partners that have been the most beneficial for them?
Well, I think speaking, because we have different countries, so if we're talking about Asia, is a very big definition. Like we have 2 startups from New Zealand, from India, where English is basically the official language there. But if you are thinking of other Asian countries like China, of course you have a growing population who's speaking English, who can communicate with you here in Europe. But the majority of the people there speak their own language. I think in most of the Asian countries you have this localization problem. Means sometimes the first hurdle is still communication, language, so localization. So if a Chinese company, they want to go abroad, like to Europe, it's already a big step, not like a Chinese company going to Japan or go to Singapore. That's relatively easier because of the similar Asian cultures. To Europe, you need to face suddenly I don't know how many countries we have in Europe, how many different languages, how many different markets. So it's emotionally already a big hurdle for them. So typically what you are seeking to, first one, you talk to your lawyers. That's typically what we see, especially established more or less like in these to-be unicorn stage startups who are already big in their domestic market. They are seeking for international expansion. Then they will be talking to their lawyers or law firms to get advice from there. But you can imagine such advice is not really much helpful for them because the lawyer may be sitting in London offices and they're talking to their international teams somewhere else. So there's always a certain gap. So we have been seeing a lot of startups coming from China to Germany, and they made their first batches of choices based on the recommendation of their advisors, their lawyers from their home market, because they have the trust built over the past years. But such decisions, if you look at back, like 5 years later, maybe not the best thing that you want to go. So there's still a lot of information gaps that we need to close. So I would say we definitely need a lot of ecosystem players. Like here in Berlin, we have Berlin Partner, we have different organizers. We have like a betahaus as the local bridge makers, so to say. But still, there's a certain piece of information it is missing between the both sides, and the language still plays a big part in that. So unfortunately, technology, we can translate things around with Google, with everything, but still to make the big decision, you need someone who can speak your own language. So that is part of the missing puzzle still.
Definitely. Thank you for answering that. I feel like it's perfect timing for Mario to get your take, because what 36 Chambers is trying to do, it's a little bit, maybe even in between, and exactly maybe, Emon, what you have highlighted, and I'm curious if that's also how you guys are trying to position yourself, if that's how you see your role within the ecosystem?
Yeah, so basically, first to your question, like in general, I would say these multipliers, right? That are, and there are many organizations and consultants that help with specific things. Is it finding public money, for example, for your project, has something with technology or sustainability, and they're very specific for that. Or you have a lawyer who is into that, but there are not so many ecosystem builders that have an overview over all of that, or like a multiplier that can connect to all of them and have a very, it's all about relationships, since you named it for 36 Chambers, about personal relationships. And yeah, I've seen it, for example, for Betahaus with Korea, right, with the KISET program and Born to Global. So that's, I think, very special. And comes with time, right? Because these organizations have been building these relationships for many, many years or decades even. So I think this is kind of the key. And yes, where it ties back to us, since we're new kids on the block still, that's true. But we very much focus on personal relationships. So we're not under any pressure to do any kind of deals. So we very well choose and who we want to work with on startup side, but also on all the partner side. And I would also recommend that to all of the startups for whatever program to look into not only, obviously everyone knows by now who has been in the startup world, not to look only for on investor side for money, but for relationships and what they can otherwise bring to the table, but also for these kind of ecosystem builders and partnerships, personal relationships, even here, like in Germany, but even more so in Asia, and for us specifically in Japan, is key. Otherwise, just the world doesn't work like that, right? There, with money, things are not necessarily solved. We have one experience, one case where we got approached to maybe help for market entry into Japan. And just for information, we not only do strategy, but we take responsibility for the product over there. So it's like strategy, localization, and operations, and we share the responsibility for the product there. And yeah, the company was already a little more mature, expanded in multiple other countries, and we were discussing like, okay, you have to do things differently here. Are you prepared, right? Really finding out, are they really willing to do something different? And in the end, they were like, okay, we can with some changes, but this is kind of our, our frame where the board lets us decide. And yeah, then just have to say that just doesn't work. It will be a waste of time and money. But yeah, that's kind of, I think, the approach, personal relationships.
Very interesting. I have a quick follow-up question to that before we go to the final question of the next steps. We're almost running out of time. How, in your perspective, maybe Mario, to start with you, and then I'm also going to follow up with the rest of you, how relevant or how important it is to be local and to speak the local language in order to be able to make those connections, in order to, or maybe take over those connections in your, if I understood correctly, in the way you help and service startups, you perhaps open doors, you help them set up the initial, but then I guess eventually they do take over, they participate. So I'm just curious, what is your take, for coming to Germany? Do you need a German person? For coming to Japan, in your case, do you need a Japanese? In your case, perhaps maybe more focusing on China at the moment, and then welcome to the startups in the other way.
So yes, it really depends, right? If you have a B2C product that is for designed for an international crowd anyway, then I don't know, you can carve out and just do without. I think that's perfectly doable. But if you move in Germany into B2B, very soon you will probably need a person that that speaks German. And in Japan, I mean, absolutely, right? Especially for what you refer to, also finding a team. Yeah. How is somebody supposed to find a team if you don't speak the language? So and build it up. So yes, what we do is basically help with all of that for 2 years, and then after 2 years, the company can decide, okay, we want to run alone. So we kind of hand over the team that we built. or they say, or we both have an agreement to say, okay, we're going to continue. However, it was running well. So, yeah. But yes, most likely, in order to get deeper into the ecosystem, yes, more close and more open cultures. But in the end, yeah, I think so, yes.
It's still needed. Emon, would you like to continue?
I think localization, as mentioned, I think that's really the key part, especially today at Asia Berlin Summit. So take one example, what the project we are working on right now together with Alibaba in Asia. We are doing like startup scouting and road shows in entire Southeast Asia. So not only one country, but multiple countries like Malaysia, Vietnam, Singapore, Hong Kong, etc. In each local rounds, and then you need really to speak the local language. You need to address different local partners. So this is really something very challenging. So I mentioned already before, like China, even if in China you have like 20 different dialects in different regions, so you really need someone who understands the local mentality, local culture, and the local business mindset, and also the regulations, everything. So I think localization is something you cannot really like skip. No? You need, as you mentioned, first the hire, to hire your first local person. That's really the key to find the number one local employee in that market. This is really important. And that person should be also a local player, or you go to a stronger partner in that local market, which you can leverage their resources. So, but either ways, you need a local partner. You need to localize and to deliver also your message in the local language. I think that is also something what we have been always doing as a media company, because it's better to let people come to you instead of you to pitch everyone. So maybe China is different because China is too big, and then you have 1.4, 1.5 billion of consumers and a lot of competitions. You simply do not have enough time, especially as a startup. You only have 24 hours working day, and then you cannot address the whole market. So a smarter way is like to go to the local media and get your message on the new local apps, websites, or maybe newspapers. So to see who comes back to you, I think this is a more efficient way, but otherwise you need to do it very locally.
Also adding, just real quick, especially municipalities, right? For I can only speak for Japan, but it's very important to have the connections to the local municipalities of different regions. And yeah, how are you going to do that without speaking the language?
Definitely. Thank you for sharing. For Edwina and Pranav, I already asked you for your contractors and consultants in Germany. We already got aware that you do have people, maybe not full-time on your team, but you do have people contracted to support you within expansion to the markets here. Anything else you would like to add on that perspective? Maybe Edwina, to start with you, I know that parts of your business are also operated in China, if I'm not mistaken, so you're really everywhere, while you're personally currently based in Switzerland. So anything maybe to add from your perspective on the need on people on the ground, or the need of people of that, speaking of that language or from there, to help you?
Yeah. I think essentially, just to top up what Edmund and also
Mario.
everybody is talking about, I think, Mario. What we actually intended to do is, what we actually intended to do to have these localization people is that they understand how it works. I'll give you an example. So one of our team is actually he's actually German, and like just to understand how to work in terms of tendering and contract, what system that you actually use, and how do you get this kind of sales opportunity. You wouldn't be able to know this if you come out as if you come as an external, or maybe you don't have this insider knowledge, for example. And as a result, with these working directly with local team, they have the know-how and they have the experience that you can actually outsource directly, and you don't have to actually learn from scratch. You know what? It takes you maybe a couple of years just to understand the whole system. Why would you even do it if you can actually build your own team, and they can communicate well with you, and at the same time they have the local knowledge? Whereas China, if you wanted to kind of build business and do business in China, it's very essential that you actually can speak Chinese. Although a lot of Chinese can actually speak in English nowadays, but the key thing sometimes, with languages, is not necessarily always can be translated 100%. And by speaking in some Chinese is actually understanding their mentalities and how they work. Because sometimes, even though you directly translate it in English, some of the mentality is not well translated. So you might have this misunderstanding, and this can cause actually communication breakdown and issues within the team. So for us to actually work with teams in China, specifically with our technology in Phoenix, we first of all, speaking in the same language is actually really important so that you can have seamless communication. Second of all, with this language barrier that we actually get rid of, then it's much easier for you to understand how, specific part of China, how they operate, specifically, how legislation work, and you can actually translate much better directly internally to reflect on, okay, is this the right strategy for your team to actually land in that country, given that you understand specific legislation, or you don't understand, or it doesn't make sense for you to do it. So that's very important for us as well.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. Pranav, quickly from your side, anything to add?
Yeah. So look, we probably have partners around 20 odd countries right now, right? I think all points that have been said make sense, but I think the one thing that really stands out for us is understanding the geography we're attacking, right? So as Edwina rightly mentioned, China works very differently. India is a whole different nightmare, 28 official languages, 165 dialects. It's a Europe within a country, right? So that's something that you're going to get. I think the most important thing is if you understand that, if you understand the language of business that's spoken locally, I think you have to invest time as senior management, because if you don't do that, the chances of you finding the right partner are also very slim, in my opinion. Because we've got a very nuanced product. And in fact, most of our consultants are usually helping us either with the FDA or something of that sort, but there are very, very few people who do BD for us outside of our team in India, because we've realized that we rather spend more time speaking or learning the language of the customer, because that customer once comes to us is going to be with us for the next 3 to 4 years. So for us, that's been the journey where we physically have to spend a lot more time trying to understand the geography we're attacking, do some research, do some secondary research, understand how businesses work in those geographies. So I think that's a different purview from our end.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing. And we come down to the last question. I'm not seeing anybody from behind that table waving to me, but I do believe we're on time. So maybe actually startups, I would love to start with the two of you asking, what are your next steps? What do you need? What maybe somebody from this audience, online or offline, can maybe even support you with? So Pranav, maybe to start with you.
Great. So right now at Genebox, we are more focused on cracking the IVDR regulations that are coming in Europe. And there's been a lot said about use of algorithms, etc. So that's one area that we're trying to solve at the moment, because they are classifying algorithms as healthcare devices. So that kind of changes the game quite a lot. And always happy to network, meet companies in health tech, the wellness ecosystem. That's always something that's welcome from our end. But yeah, I think that's where we are at. From a fundraise perspective, I think we will go for our next round somewhere around mid next year is what we're looking at.
Okay, great. Make sure to ping us when you do that. And whoever's been in the audience and thought that they can support him, we're also happy to share contacts if you miss him. So please feel free to come to us. Edwina, what's next for you?
So we're always looking for good talent, great talents. Just so say, step number one with Phoenxt, just to give you a high level, we are actually a company that we are actually a chemical recycling technology, being branded by Fashion for Good as one of the the 5 recycling chemical recycling technology that actually take the textile waste, actually break them down into making new fiber that we can actually recycle again. So the next step that actually coming up for us is to increase the scale of our recyclability, to actually do more testing, so that we can be better integrated with the ecosystem. So if there's anybody who are looking for partnerships to collaborate with us, give us the textile waste that they wanted to test, and turn it back into a circular economy material, so say, feel free to be in touch with us. We're always looking for good talent. So if you have very good skills for fundraising, if you have very good skills specifically on a chemical engineering, technical side, please feel free to pin me as well. We always are looking for fantastic, perfect fit team members. So it's more the experience and the mindset that counts for us. So this is probably where we get at right now.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And again, to everybody online and offline, if there's anything that interests you that Edwina shared, come talk to us. We're happy to share her contact if you don't have already. Coming back to my two in-person panelists, I'm still amazed. Emon, you're building a very big project. You're building a platform between the two continents. What is your next step and what do you need?
I think first thing we need is stories. No? So if any of you guys have interesting startup stories or you want to get a CEO interview, some fundraising news, come to us. So because this is our business, no? We want to, by our work, to close this gap between Asia and Europe. First, we will be having our English website online this month, but we are also thinking of to enter into different local markets. For example, Germany, we are thinking of to make up a German version of 36KR. That's one step. We have already successfully been doing this in Japan. We have a Japanese website. So this is very hard for Chinese company to do so, but still we believe we need a strong local partner. So yes, if anyone's interested in like closing the information gap between Europe and Asia, not only Germany, China, but these two continents, I'm always happy to talk with you and to learn your stories.
Amazing. Thank you. In person, I think, Emon, you'll stick around after the panel. There'll be drinks. You'll get to chat with people. For the people online, I think there's a way that you can get in touch with us so we can also connect. Mario, last but not least, I know I called you New Kids on the Block. I know you have a lot of experience. I didn't want to undermine you. What can we help you with?
It's all good. We are pretty fresh with a new company. So for us, we're basically looking for two things. One is interesting companies with from the field of either impact sustainability topic, or future of work, right? Everything that's connected to how do we work in the future, tools, all of that. And we have a third secret bracket, which is anything else that we find cool. But yeah.
You're the cool New Kids on the Block. Okay, I got it.
Yes, so that is one, right? And the other one is we're looking to exactly also connect with other enablers, ecosystem builders, because we found already, because our special connection is with Japan or access to Japan and Germany. And there's many other organizations who do similar things for other ecosystems. And since naturally if a company is expanding and ready to expand and goes to one country, others will follow. So building this trusted network of enablers, that is the second one.
Amazing. So with that, I would just like to, perfect, Rainer. Please do.
So thank you very much, Eva, for moderating this wonderful panel. I just want to announce that there is a last panel, but there is a fireside chat now on stage number 1. So a last activity where I have to speak already for 10 minutes. But the more important thing is that afterwards we have a networking session with free food and drinks, even alcohol served downstairs. So it's worth to stay here to network and to use the possibilities to get new contact, new stories, and to approach all our panelists of today who are still here. And thank you so much for being here, and see you later downstairs at stage number 1 or then for the networking session afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Rainer.